Hello and welcome to another edition of Only in Illinois, your weekly video recap from Reboot Illinois. I'm Madeline Duback here with Matt Dietrich, and this week we had the opportunity to take a little field trip and go meet the state's new comptroller for an interview in her office, and it was a good conversation.
Right, we learned a lot about Leslie Munger's background, what she brings to the office, what she hopes to accomplish in the office, and just in general, kind of her views on what's going on right now in Illinois. So let's have a look. Historically, the comptroller, you're kind of in a good, almost neutral position to sort of say, hey, this is the way things are. They're bad. Are you going to use your office that way now? You have a situation we haven't seen now where you have you and a governor where there, I would imagine, will be a lot more cooperation than we've seen over the last, say, 12 years. So do you see part of your role as getting the message out to people and letting them know where we're at? I know the governor's done a fair amount of that himself.
Absolutely. So everyone knows that I have no vote in the legislature, but what I do have is a loud megaphone for this office. And I have been traveling all over the state, talking to business leaders, chamber of commerces, local organizations, not-for-profits, talking about what is going on in our state. And I think the best thing I can do to help get our state turned around is to shine a light on the financial issues that we have, not being blameful for how we got here, but certainly being honest about the state of our state and that we need to change the paradigm about how we do things here, because we're not serving anyone well right now with the budget issues we have. We can promise all the money that we've promised, but we can't pay for it, and we need to change that.
Where does the bill backlog stand now?
As of this morning, I believe it was a couple of nights, it's 7.6. As of this morning, it's $7.6 billion. That is a total of bills that we have in the comptroller's office, as well as bills that are sitting in agencies waiting to move into our office that need to be paid.
And is there is there a delay between when these bills get put in and when service providers get paid? Where are we at on that?
There is a bit of a delay. So when bills come into our office, some of those bills have been in our office since January. We're still holding some of those bills. It depends on the revenues of the state coming in. When organizations are desperate for funds, we tell them to give us a call. We've had that from a lot of social service agencies, and in fact, with the child care providers and court reporters, everything that just happened on our fiscal 15 budget, they were behind because last year a budget was passed that had more spending than it had revenue in it, and they ran out of money before the end of the fiscal year. So once that budget fix was put in place, now we're getting those vouchers in. We've expedited those payments and turned those around within a couple of days. So we can operate very quickly when we have the money to do it. The issue is having the money to do it.
And Governor Rauner has talked a lot about looking under the hood. And when he looked under the hood, the engine was in really bad shape. You talked a little bit earlier about kind of taking a look into the books here. What did you see when you first got into office here and took a look under the hood?
Well, from my perspective, the under the hood is where is our money, where are the accounts. We have over 800 and 900 different accounts for our state. Most states have somewhere between 50 to 60. We have over 263 different accounting systems that feed data into our state. As a result, it takes us a long time to understand where we are financially. So under the hood for me was old accounting system that is 30-some years old and really should be obsolete. We need a new one. It makes it hard for us to follow the money. We have, as a result of that, we are very late in filing our financial reports. So we need reform on how we track our expenses. We need to look carefully at where we spend our money. In my office, we have gone through a planning session and we've looked for how we can do things faster, cheaper, and better. And through that process, we've been able to find savings that will help us deliver a 10% reduction in our budget in fiscal 16 versus fiscal 15.
Now, because of the circumstances that you took this office, you are almost, you're in a unique position because you're almost a cabinet member because you were, the governor selected you and put you in. Does that give you a better voice at the table as all these budget decisions are being made?
I guess I have a strong voice, on the budget issues. To be honest, I am a separate office, and so I do try to. I certainly want to support the governor in everything he's doing with respect to fiscal responsibility. I do believe I owe the people of Illinois that of being an independent voice for them in our government, and I try to do that. I certainly agree with a lot of the fiscal approaches that the governor has started taking, certainly the need to get to a balanced budget, the need to rein in expenses so that we can do what the state is supposed to be doing.
When you talk about being an independent voice, your predecessor, Comptroller Topinka, even during the campaign in the summer for governor, was saying, look, we're going to have the state's going to have a heart attack if we cut things off too quickly and drop the income tax rate, and we've dropped the income tax rate now. Are we having a heart attack? And how do you balance? You spoke earlier about the need to balance getting the budget under control with real people who are harmed by some of the decisions that are made.
I don't know that we're having a heart attack. It's difficult. I'll be honest. It's difficult in this office right now. We have $400 million a month less in revenue coming into our state. That's a lot. That said, I believe a promise is a promise. And I spoke earlier about the importance of creating an environment where businesses will want to come back, invest, and grow. One of the key things we need to show our business community is that they can rely on us for some kind of a predictable policy, predictable economic environment. We have had the tax scheme du jour in our state. We have had regulations and everything just coming out there. It has been anything but predictable for a number of years. And so I think the best thing that we can do in our state is to start keeping our promises to the business owners, to the taxpayers, to the people of Illinois for what we've promised, and move forward from there. So while it's difficult for my office to pay the bills, I believe we passed that tax as a temporary tax set to sunset. I'm glad it's sunset. We also took in somewhere around $30 billion in additional revenue as a result of that increase. That revenue, that tax was passed in order to pay down our bills and our bill backlog. It didn't. So to me, until we cut off the what seems to be the never-ending source of additional funding through taxes and force some real decisions on how to move forward differently and more cost-effectively, we're not going to get there.
I know there are, as you mentioned, social service agencies and groups out there who provide services to children and adults in need, and they just got told their funds are cut off. So what would you say to them at this point?
I believe that the budget that was put out there is the beginning of a negotiation. I do not believe that the governor has any intent to cut off all their funding. I do believe that there are things that we have to do in our state, and certainly taking care of those who are most vulnerable in our state is one of them. And I am a long-time volunteer myself and supporter of organizations that do that. And we work actually very hard in our office to prioritize payments for those organizations that are tight on funds right now. In my office, I've been out talking to a lot of these organizations. They're, of course, very worried about their funding. And one of the things that we are doing is putting together and reinvigorating, I guess, a not-for-profit advisory council that will have people from organizations throughout the state involved in it. And through that, we are going to look for ways to share best practices, to help them find ways to be more efficient, share possible purchasing strength, or other things we can do. And honestly, I've talked to a number of them. They all have ideas of things that they could do to help reduce their expenses and still deliver services. And also work to help connect them with private sources that can help fill that gap that the state is having some difficulty providing right now. Because honestly, we can fund them, but right now we can't pay them. And right now they're floating the state. So I think it just speaks again to, in order to help them, we have to reform how we do things so we have the funds to be able to pay them.
So you will run in 2016.
I will run in 2016. I made the governor that promise when he asked me to take this appointment. You know, one other thing, if you have time, I just like to maybe share a little story, because
Sure.
it's something I say everywhere I go talk, and I think it's just maybe it's a lesson I tell people that I learned back in my early days working at Procter & Gamble. It's something I really believe to my core, and it's one of the reasons why I'm here and why I've really done all the things that I've done, both in the political arena, but also in my community volunteerism. And the story is that back when I worked at Procter & Gamble, I had a manager who every time we walked into his office, he had one of these little placards on his desk. And it didn't matter whether we had to ask a quick question or to make a presentation. He'd look at his thing and say, always remember these 10 little 2-letter words. And he'd point to this thing. And those words were, if it is to be, it is up to me. And everyone who ever worked for me at Helene Curtis heard those words. My kids heard those words probably more times than they wished throughout their growing up, because I think it's an important call to personal responsibility and to leadership. And I think that has been lacking in our state for a long time. I'm very grateful to have a governor who understands the importance of leadership and putting a goal out there. I am really going to work hard to lead fiscal responsibility, fiscal changes in my area, a real understanding that we need to do things faster, cheaper, and better. We need to run our state like people run their homes and like businesses run their businesses. And so that's why I'm here. It's really a love of my state and a real belief that those who can have to step up, take responsibility, and give back.
That's it for this week's edition. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next edition of Only in Illinois.